Добрый день, друзі. I really hope some of that was true. I'm not sure. But my name is Michael. I have been working as an urban designer, urban planner in over 100 cities around the world. And I just try to do what I can to make cities better, to improve the urban human condition. And it's always a pleasure to be back in Ukraine. And like I tweeted a couple of days ago, who in the world organizes an urban forum about the future development of cities in the middle of a war zone? Only the amazing, crazy, beautiful Ukrainians. Like this room here and the room outside in the courtyard. I mean, this energy right here, we just started. It might get boring, I don't know. But the energy here, please keep this energy and transform it into positive urban change, because this is an amazing forum. I have, for many years, designed the bicycle infrastructure in cities, but yeah, as Anton said, I wrote the book, the Bible, how to make our cities bicycle friendly once again. And of course, it's available in Ukrainian. So I could talk for an hour about my opinions about bicycle transport in Ukrainian cities, but I'll probably cry. So we're gonna do something a little more positive today. I have an international TV series about urbanism, the life-sized city, and we have just finished season 4. And I travel to cities around the world and I meet the people who are making change happen. And it's not the politicians, the planners, the engineers, it's mostly the people. There is a global, subconscious, collective movement, and I don't know where it started, but everywhere, citizens are standing up and saying, you know, I don't have time to wait anymore. I'm gonna do it myself, with my neighbors, on my street, in my neighborhood. It's a beautiful thing. There's a podcast in English, there's a YouTube channel. But today I want to talk about these lessons that I've been learning about how to future-proof our urban world. Because we have to get our cities ready for what is coming, and there's a lot of things coming. First of all, I think it's important to identify a major flaw in humans. We are obsessed by the future. We have always been obsessed by the future, ever since we became humans. We look at the existing technology and say, oh my God, that is really, really cool. But all we want to know is what's coming. You know, when's the next iPhone coming out? When's the next shiny thing to make my life easier? And this is a bit dangerous because it makes us very vulnerable. It makes us very easy to exploit as consumers. And for 1 million years, the slogan for human development was this expression, possibly also in Ukrainian: necessity is the mother of invention. We invented things for 1 million years because we needed it here and now. It was a problem, and here's the solution. Now, in our modern society, we are inventing things because we can, just because we can. And the people doing the inventing in many industries, like biotech and infotech, they are engineers, entrepreneurs, tech dudes in Silicon Valley or wherever they are, and they do not represent the rest of us in our daily lives at all. Cities are far too organic in their nature, and we have human needs, urgent human needs in our cities all over the world that are not represented by profit-based tech companies. So all the wrong people are doing a lot of the inventing in our modern society. We should question that. And we always hear about smart cities, right? Oh, everybody talks about smart cities. I speak at these conferences, and I've been asking people for years, what is a smart city? Anybody? What do you think a smart city is? Nobody has one definition. Nobody knows. It's just a really cool thing to say. If you're in a bar, you're going, yeah, I work in smart cities. Yeah, what does it mean? We don't know. So we have to be careful. We have to really focus on the needs of humans in our cities. And I'm always the guy to say that we have lived together in cities for 7,000 years. It worked. A lot of things worked better than they work today. So instead of looking only as techno-optimists to the future, we have to be brave and look backwards at solutions that worked and think about how we can transfer them into our cities today. Obsessing about tech and smart cities in 2023 really is the metaphor of Emperor Nero fiddling while Rome burned down below, because the world is burning and tech will not save the world. They really want you to believe that, but it won't. Tech is a great supplement to ideas from other industries and other professions. So tech is good, but it won't save the world. In my experience around the world, climate change, of course, is here. In my experience, most cities everywhere are not prepared. They are hopelessly underprepared for what is coming. There's a lot of talk in a lot of city councils and national governments, but we're not ready to tackle it. Climate change is a crisis, the biggest one we will ever face. So I started looking at what lessons I can learn from other crises that we've been through recently. And I started with the pandemic. And I took a long, hard look at what happened to us in our cities. We were all there together. It was a global pandemic. But what happened? First of all, we Zoomed a lot. We worked at home. We Zoomed with our family, friends, and colleagues. And Zoom is about the only tech that made our lives easier during the pandemic, but it's just a new Skype. It's just a telephone with a screen. It's nothing fancy. What we all did was, certainly in Europe, and we looked out of our windows at the thing they told us was impossible. Car-free streets. We're like, oh my God. Everybody in Copenhagen was talking about it, even the motorists, I'm not a motorist, but they were even going, okay, that's pretty cool, actually, yeah. And I can hear birds singing in my neighborhood for the first time, It was so quiet in our cities. So we shared this beautiful image of what our cities could be. We also learned that our cities can adapt quickly and creatively to the challenges that we're facing, embracing the opportunity for positive urban change. We saw it all over the world. A car lane became a bike lane because people didn't want to take public transport. Sidewalks were widened for social distancing. Many, many cities did it. These two examples are from Paris. But what also happened was that I work with cities all over the world, and they are so often conservative, boring, slow-moving, We saw that cities could do it fast. It's kind of like our gotcha moment, the pandemic. Ha! You can do the change fast and positive if you want. So why don't you just do that all the time is the question. We explored our neighborhoods. We worked from home, we went out, and I noticed architectural details on my street where I've lived for 20 years, We really gained a sense of ownership over our neighborhoods. That is a very positive thing. We learned that the shipping crisis caused by the pandemic, we should not be as dependent on these faraway countries as we are, and we need to have more local shops, locally sourced good, more industry back in Europe, and certainly back in our cities. Urban industry, man, we've forgotten about that idea. We responded to urban human needs with simple analog solutions. There was no massive tech that fell out of the sky and got us through our daily lives during the pandemic. It was simple things. And this is the most universal takeaway. We have many cities that put in temporary bike lanes and stuff. Some are making them permanent, others are removing them, sadly. But everywhere in the world, they said outdoor serving. Wow. Take away some parking, put some tables so people can social distance. The business can still make some money. We can still pretend that we're living in a city even though we have a global pandemic. And there's examples from everywhere. And in these cities, they are still in place. The pandemic's long gone, and this is a really good idea. So that was the greatest thing that we learned from the pandemic in urbanism. And then we walked from a pandemic into a brutally disgusting invasion of a country right on our doorsteps in Europe. Speaking as a European, you live here, of course. And I started looking at what lessons can we learn from Ukrainians and Ukrainian cities during the pandemic, during the war. And I've had an opportunity to really look at this because I have been in Ukraine for more than 6 months since the start of the full invasion. Last April, I got an email from two people I didn't know, but an urban planner here from Lviv and an urban planner in Kiev, and they said, Michael, man, you're from Denmark. You live in Copenhagen, the world's best city for bikes. Can you please try and find out how to get used bikes and get them to us in Ukraine because we need them desperately. And in April, 2022, I was like, oh my God, of course, a personal appeal, something that I could do to help Ukraine. So I started an NGO called bikesforukraine.org. There's the QR code up there. And I started sourcing used bikes in Europe and using international crowdfunding to bring them to Ukraine. And a lot of people ask, why do Ukrainians, even Ukrainians, that's really cool. Why do we need bikes? It's not really that intuitive some cases. So there are two reasons. One is the original idea. All of the refugee camps here in Lviv, we brought bikes and gave them to the citizens there who have fled from the east to Lviv, giving them mobility, making it easier for them to go shopping, to the doctor, to the schools. But most of our bikes later, we found out they had an even more important function. And they are simply lifelines all over Ukraine. The simple used bicycle is being used to deliver food, water, humanitarian aid, medicine, even the post. We're basically postal bikes now in many parts of Ukraine. And bicycles are amazing because they can navigate any landscape. They're reliable, they're resistant, they're easy to repair. And we give them to a network of NGOs around the country who give them to volunteers and social workers who use them. And it's just, it's a beautiful story. Probably the most Danish story ever. Our used bikes saving lives, making lives better in Ukraine. Because of course you have all of the problems with public transport, with the gas shortage, the bombed roads. Bicycles, man, they save the day every single time. These are some of the photos we get sent from the volunteers. You know, a 22-year-old woman with 30 kilograms of potatoes, 20 liters of water, riding 10 kilometers out to the deoccupied villages to deliver these things. It never gets old. It never gets any less beautiful. But then I started looking around at what else we can learn. Simple lessons. This is a presentation I do mostly in the rest of the world, right? That what we can learn from you people. So, of course, Mykolaiv. I've been working there a lot, and they've had no fresh water since the beginning of the war, so they just simply converted their existing trams and trolley buses to deliver water, right? You've probably seen this. Of course, the regular routes around there, I was there last year with missiles flying overhead, bombs in the distance, and people are filling up their water and getting home, right? What's that? It's a simple, existing analog solution, right? There's no big fancy tech. It's just something that works well. We also learned the importance of food security in our cities and the lack of it in many places. And we knew about this, but it really was spelled out last year. There were many cases in Ukrainian cities where it was so easy to occupy them because, you know, for thousands of years, we kept our food in our cities. If we all wanted to invade a city today, we got our armies and we would surround the city, cut them off from the outside world, and would just wait for months, for a year in some cases, because the food was in the city. I don't even know where my food is in Copenhagen. It comes from industrial areas in our car-centric world, far away from my home. So it was very easy to take some cities because of this aspect. But also, whatever city you live in, anywhere in the world, if it was cut off from the outside world tomorrow, there's only food for 14 days for the citizens. That food security is incredibly important as we face climate change, as we face whatever else we might be facing. But you guys, I'm amazed at the level of personal food security for many, many Ukrainians. You know, I have a friend who went out to grandma's house, cleared away the bombed house, and just planted the garden like you always do for centuries, right? The personal level of food security is incredibly inspiring, and that's something that we need back in Europe. We have to remember that this was normal for 7,000 years, and we need it again. There's just some fun things that I noticed driving around this country for a year and a half. You know, a lot of the very impromptu shelters and you know, military installations and checkpoints put together in a real hurry. And then I see on the right, I was driving in Kharkiv Oblast last week, and I noticed there's a new typology. Somebody put some thought into the architecture. Simple, effective, it's not expensive, and I just think it's really cool. That's another example of simple solutions that work. So also with the energy infrastructure, right? Ukrainians, you just found generators and just fired them up and life went on, you know? Like this one, this is my hotel in Kyiv, you all know this, and just even the small ones. I was so fascinated by the small generator just running the one espresso machine in the one little cafe in Podil. Coffee is so important during the war. I've learned that from you people. Coffee is incredibly important. But yeah, simple analog solutions. It's not cool to burn diesel, we know that. It's like we should stop doing that. But when you need it, it's there, right? This is what I call the age of urbanism. We are thinking differently about our cities and towns for the first time in over 100 years. It's really an interesting time in urban history. And cities are the absolute key to tackling climate change. Local urban change is incredibly quick, right? We can do things on a neighborhood street tomorrow, together. We could all literally go out and do this tomorrow. And the change is immediate and effective. And that is our front line against the climate change that is going to get worse. Street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood, city by city. That is the change. That's where it's going to happen. National politicians signing documents saying, it means nothing to me in my daily life. My neighborhood street, that's the front line. So there is proof about the need for future-proofing our cities. And it's happening already, even before the pandemic, even before the invasion. This is what's happening in Paris. Just don't tell the mayor of Kharkiv about this. He's going to hate this story. Amsterdam, taking out 10,000 parking spots. You know, Oslo has already taken out 7,000. Car-free city center, same size as Lviv. Paris is the only city to watch, really, in the world. They are doing so many amazing things every single week. Paris is the leadership city that we have been waiting for decades. They're taking out 65,000 parking spots. You won't be able to drive through the center of Paris next year. You'll have to go out to the motorway, go all the way around and come in on this side. Just, you know, getting cars out of the city. And like the photo is in Utrecht. Many cities are putting back their rivers and canals that were covered for car infrastructure back in the 50s and 60s. This is what's happening. It's not just like a couple of weird cities, it's really the norm. These photos are from Copenhagen, same location, 3 photos. 1907, beautiful life-sized streets for people. That's what they were designed for, that kind of thing you see there. We made the same mistakes as everybody else, man. 1972, we had paved over paradise and let loose the cars in our cities, but that's what it looks like today. This is what I see happening in so many parts of the world. This is where we're going, and this is where we need to go. Back to the future. We need to go back to a time when we were rational and intelligent about urban planning, and that was the time before we invented the automobile. The streets of our cities are the most democratic spaces in the history of Homo sapiens. For 7,000 years, we did everything together in their streets. Nobody owned them, they were ours together. And then we invented the automobile, and this was the greatest paradigm shift in the history of Homo sapiens. Nothing before, nothing since changed our thinking about what it is to live in cities than the invention of the car. And ever since then, we have this perception. Every city in the world, still today. Oh, the streets, those are for cars now. I have to wait to cross the street as a pedestrian. There's no space for me on my bike, right? This is the big challenge that we face, is turning this back and going back to the future. This is a short history of traffic engineering, kind of for fun, but kind of not. We were rational about providing a fast A to B for our primary transport forms for 7,000 years. 1950s in Europe. A little bit later, perhaps in Eastern Europe, but still, that's what we're stuck with on the right. In the thinking of city councils and planning departments all over the planet, how do we make the car have a fast A to B? Everybody else? Good luck with that. We don't even care anymore. But this is what we need to do. This is the quickest plan for making our cities better you're ever going to see. You prioritize the 3 transport forms on the left, and you make driving a car difficult. That's what's happening in Copenhagen, Paris, Amsterdam, you name it. That's the only way we're going to do this. We're not going to change behavior by talking to people. We need to have this urban change now. And a lot of the problem is traffic engineering. And this has been the problem in most cities in the world for 70, 80 years. And basically, here's the quickest course in traffic engineering you're ever going to need. We know that the absolute truth is, if you make more space for cars, if you widen the road, widen the motorway, create more parking, you don't make traffic flow better, you get more cars. This is the one fact from 100 years of traffic engineering. It's called induced demand in English. But we also know that if you take away space from cars and you restrict their movement, you get less cars, which is what we want in our cities now from the mistakes we made for 100 years. So basically, now that you know that, we have 500 new traffic engineers, because that's all you need to know about traffic engineering. These are the voices from the future. The one on the left is the former mayor of Paris who started the urban revolution. And he says, quite simply, the fact is that cars no longer have a place in the big cities of our time. And he mic drops, right? And so many politicians around the world are saying the same things. The woman in charge of Paris, she's basically continuing this same thing, and they're acting upon it. In so many ways in our cities, we need to change questions. We've been asking the same questions for 70, 80 years, getting the same answers every year and just going, oh, okay, I guess that's the answer. No critical thinking, just shrugging and, off we go. So if we think about transportation planning, This is the one question we've asked for like since 1940s, 1950s. How many cars can we fit down the street? That's all we've been interested in knowing. But the cool cities around the world are changing that question now, and they are asking, wait a minute, how many people, humans, can we move down a street? You know, you change that question, you get a whole bunch of new, exciting answers that you've never heard for 70 years. And the model I made at the bottom in Photoshop, it literally has 10 times the capacity for moving people down a street than the model at the top, which basically was copy-pasted from the Soviets and from the Americans a very long time ago without really asking us. It's the choice of a new urban generation. Do we just want more life with cars? No, ew. Do we want life with electric cars? No, it's basically the same thing. We don't need different cars, we need fewer cars. Life with autonomous cars? Yeah, we don't even have to worry about that. That's not gonna happen. They lied to us about that one. We need life in a modern city. All the things we've known for 7,000 years, all the things we know today. So this is kind of, now it's a bit of a joke, right? You guys do not like Russians, right? We know this, and I understand why, and I'm with you on that one. But I really find it kind of ironic that everything anti-Russian, but you seem to like the infrastructure that they left when the Soviets left, right? It's kind of like a bit of a joke, but hey, this is a real question. What kind of cities do you want, you know? Cool. I was really worried about that joke. Thank you for somebody for clapping. But that's the question, right? What do you want? You want to lean towards Europe in so many ways? Yes, we want you to do that, but like that involves urban planning. Okay, so there's a lot of things happening in cities. Every city in the world has an urban farm. Somebody's growing something on the urban landscape everywhere, which is really cool. Biodiversity, the cooling effect of green in a city, tackling pollution, also providing self-sufficiency and food security. But it's not enough. Even here in Copenhagen, no more cars on this roof. It's now one of our beautiful urban farms, providing food in the local neighborhood. It's still not enough. Like Anton said, no more baby steps, right? Well, actually, I said that, and he quoted me on it, right? Yeah, okay. No more baby steps, man. We got to go to the next level in so many ways. But this example, Paris, another thing about Paris, they're planning 4 urban forests because they have so many problems with climate change, with pollution. And if you've ever been to City Hall in Paris, that's what it's going to look like in a very near future. They're just absolutely transforming their city, doing everything that we all should be doing. The lessons from the pandemic, creating temporary infrastructure, right? In a flash. Great idea, it works, but it also has worked for many, many years. So many pilot projects. This pilot project culture that we have in many European cities, especially in Scandinavia, is so important. These are friends of mine in the States, in the US. They just take a block and they transform it. And they show you what it's going to look like. They don't talk about it. They say, this is what I mean. It takes the conversation to a much more intelligent level if you show people. And it's really, really effective. So often it becomes permanent because everybody understands it. Even people who still hate it are going, okay, now I get it. Okay, fine, you know. Now, next level can be relative in many, many ways. This is the English word, parklets. It's an international thing. I see it all over the world. You take away car parking and you put in a wooden structure so people can sit down, right? Get some shade. You can eat your lunch. There are some here in Lviv. There's a lot of things in Lviv that you don't see in other parts of Ukraine and other cities in Ukraine in a good way. But I was in Kiev, and the hotel I stay at in Podil, they have one. It's on the left. It was put in 3 years ago. Nobody knows who put it there, and nobody was using it. It was just the paint. You know, there was no paint on it. It just looked like it should fall down soon. So this is how I spent my last weekend in Kiev. I bought some paint. I bought some beers. I have some friends. We painted it. Just crazy 4 colors. Like it took 2 hours. We didn't care. It's not like artwork. It's just like quickly give it some colors. The next day, it was activated, reactivated. There were families sitting there. There were people walking past going, wait a minute, that's different now. Oh, that kind of looks nice. You know, I was observing them all day and every single day. Even people in the evening before the curfew were standing there with their friends. Amazing, simple things. And then the next day after that, I made ping pong tables with another friend in Podil. Soviet-era ping pong tables. There's been no wood on the top for 30 years, we asked the neighbors. So we made that. Took us a day. We drank some beers. And the paint was not even dry, and there were kids from the neighborhood out there playing. Their ball was completely covered in paint, and they didn't care. Their mothers might care because they also had paint on their clothes. Not the point. The point was, we activated this spot. And there were some dudes playing basketball, and they were watching us like, well, who are these weird dudes? That old guy and that other guy, what are they doing? And they came over after basketball, and they said, can we help? Can we do something? What can we do? So we put them to work doing another job. We inspired them. We need a lot more design thinking in our cities. We've had enough engineering, traffic modeling, all of these things which have never really worked. I come from a design country. My kids have design in the 3rd year of school. It's all deeply rooted in us. But I've always just wondered, why are we engineering streets? Like they're machines, right? Why are we not designing them for the users, for the user experience, like we design everything in our lives? Our phones, this thing, this was a design process, a human-to-human design process from somebody probably in Asia, and it ended up in my hand. You know, positive, wow, it's so easy to use. Everything we use in our lives, we want it to be designed well. But our streets, we just let engineering take over, right? So there's a really interesting point that we need to think about. I see cool stuff all over the world, and this is a disaster park in Tokyo. They have them all over Japan. The Japanese are incredibly prepared for the next big earthquake. It's coming. It could be tonight. It could be in 20 years. They just know it's coming. There's no doubt. So they are so Japanese about it. This park is where the local community, they will all practice running, you know, just in case, you know, they're drilling for the earthquake. Except everything in this park transforms into something else. The benches on the left, they become barbecues, like that. There's a team who are designated. When the earthquake strikes, they know exactly what they have to do, and they become barbecues so people can have hot food. Then, how do I go back? And then there's a row of toilets will appear. The infrastructure is already in place. So the toilets will just go down the row and when disaster strikes. All the structures in the park are designed for 2 purposes. And you can use this for your birthday party on a Saturday when the weather's great, or it will be wrapped in a flash to provide shelters for people. Even the children's playground on the right, where the kids climb, is designed to be a medical facility when the earthquake hits, in a flash. So, you know, let's hope that they don't need it ever, but then when they need it, it's there. That kind of dual design, man, it fascinates me. It makes me think, what else can we do in our cities? And certainly in a war zone, and with the threat, the threat of war in the future, whatever might happen, this kind of stuff, this is where we should be putting all of our design focus instead of waiting for Silicon Valley to send us a new app or whatever they do, right? One example in this cobblestone city, oh my God, Lviv. In Copenhagen, we have cobblestones also, not as crazy as yours, but we have them. And we design streets for bikes. So down the middle or on the side, we have incredibly smooth cobblestones. So it still looks historical, but it's nicer to ride a bike on the side. Again, dual purpose, keeping the historical nature, but then making it nice to ride a bike, encouraging people to ride bikes. So I am working in Mykolaiv. For the past 6 months, I have been designing with my team, Mykolaiv, to be the Copenhagen of Ukraine. We are designing the entire bicycle infrastructure network. A lot of opportunity to work with because half the population is gone, and you know, a little bit different vibe than Lviv. And I'm doing what I've been doing all over the world. And then one person on my team was saying, hey, a Ukrainian guy, he was saying, we're forgetting something. I said, okay, what are we forgetting? I don't forget things. I've been doing this for years. He says, evacuation routes, man. And I go, oh my God, of course. Like having the opportunity, if the Russians come back, if something else happens, another flood, whatever happens, opportunity to also ride a bike out of the city, like so many Ukrainians did during the invasion last year, right? So I've never designed bicycle infrastructure network with evacuation routes, and now we're doing it, and it feels right, it feels good. Another dual purpose, mobility during the day, and then a dual purpose when we need it later, or hopefully we will never use it, never need it. So this book is coming out in September, and I want you to look forward to this book, because I've been working on this for a long time. I thought, okay, I'm a bit scared about the new Marshall Plan that might come for Ukraine, or whatever, however it's going to be. Europe was rebuilt after the Second World War, but it became American-style infrastructure. And these cities, man, they are still suffering from that even today. And I'm worried about like mayors like in Kharkiv who are talking about taking out the trams. Like all of Europe is putting the trams back. And we're going, you're taking them out? Oh my God, do not do that. What the hell are you thinking, man? And then you have the star architects like Norman Foster. Oh my, these people don't know how to design neighborhoods. He can make a big tall building, but they don't know how to design that. I'm worried about these things because the cities that we've lived in for so long, the cities we need in the future are human. They are responding to the needs of me and my family and my kids and my grandma and everything like that. So this book, I've asked experts in my network from around the world who've all donated one urban idea for Ukraine. And it's a positive book. It's going to say, here's stuff that works elsewhere. Maybe it'll work in Ukraine. It's going to be the first book about post-war reconstruction in Europe in the 21st century. And it ain't going to be any motorways in this book. There's no tall buildings made by crazy, corrupt developers. It's all human ideas. So look forward to that book. Okay, so Copenhagen is one city that is prepared for climate change. We were hit by a 1,000-year storm in 2011, and that is our climate change. So much rain in the summer, like never before, and the city can't handle it. So after that happened in Denmark, they went, oh my God, that is bad. That must not happen again. Tens of millions of euros of investment in a good way to change that. So now we have simple things like a green roof policy. All new structures have to have a green roof for biodiversity, the cooling effect in the heat islands of our cities, but also this train station, it has so much dirt underneath the grass, so it soaks up like incredible amounts of rainwater, keeping it out of the train station and off the streets. This is in my neighborhood. This is a buffer between the bike lane and the sidewalk and the people who still drive cars. Beautiful green buffer, biodiverse, looks nice, cools down the street. I've measured it. It actually is cooler on this street than on other ones. But we've also redesigned all the streets so that the water, when it rains, flows into this. This is a reservoir also. Dual design, again, right? Beautiful when we don't need it, important when we need it. And it's all over the city, man. And I know Lviv suffers a lot with flooding and rain and stuff like that too, right? This used to be car parking in a densely populated neighborhood. And now it's a beautifully landscaped park. We can drink some beers, kids can play. It's great. But this park can handle the next 1,000-year storm in that neighborhood. All the streets have been redesigned so all the water flows into this park. And there's no massive tech involved. It's quite simple infrastructure. The Romans were using this kind of stuff, you know. It's just worked then, it works today. It'll take the water away from our homes and businesses. And it's all over the city, large and small sponges, we call them. And it just soaks up all this water that is going to continue to come. That is how you make climate change adaptation. New Orleans has a similar idea. They have a lot of asphalt in their city. It's America, right? So they jackhammer, these NGOs that I work with, they jackhammer all around the house and they make a surface that the water can absorb into. They plant local species of trees and plants that have evolved in that climate for millions of years to soak up rainwater in their roots. Like, we are so arrogant sometimes, we forget to look at what nature can do for us. Nature can do a lot of the jobs that we need. And after it rains on a street like that, this home is dry, completely dry around that home, and the rest of the street is flooded. So it's biodiverse, and it has an important function. There are so many ideas. I could stand here for days, the people I meet all over the world. This guy, he goes up into the poorest neighborhoods in Colombia who are informal. They're not even recognized as residents of the city. They're squatting the land, and they have nothing. They're not connected to the grid. So he goes up with these little solar-powered lights, and he says, hey, what's up? Can we make some street lights for you? And sometimes these are gang-controlled areas, and the gangs are going, okay, cool. Because like in places like that, the gangs are like the city council. It's really a weird concept. But they're saying, cool. And in no time, for really little money, they all of a sudden have street lights, giving them more safety at night in these mountainous areas, but also giving them just the dignity of having streetlights, right? Something we all have, but man, simple idea. And then these people in Buenos Aires, they go also into the poor neighborhoods and they teach the people how to make solar panels out of their garbage, cans and bottles. And that heats the water containers on the roof, giving these people hot water for the very first time, the dignity of hot water. But all of this also is self-reliance. These are ideas that are off the grid. They don't need to be connected to the bigger grid. They are so self-reliant. You guys have shown how self-reliant Ukrainians are during the war, inspiring for all of us. But in Europe, man, well, we're screwed if climate change really hits us hard, which it will. You know, that level of self-sufficiency, we're not prepared for it. We just trust in the grid. The grid will give me energy. The grid will give me water, take away my toilet, you know, my shit and everything. Yeah, when we need it, man, we're gonna have to be ready. I'm not saying we all have to learn how to survive for 20 years in the wilderness with one knife. That's not gonna be what we need, but we need to have more self-sufficiency. And then there's recycled architecture. I didn't know this existed. We talk about the importance of sustainable architecture, right? Using more sustainable materials instead of just concrete and what we've been doing for years. This building is huge and it is completely zero carbon. This is the architect. It's 1.5 million plastic bottles reformed into poly bricks. This building heats itself, it cools itself, it's earthquake proof as well. Why is this not policy in every city, every country in the world, including my own? Like, we can build amazing stuff out of all the plastic waste that we have, right? There's so many ideas out there that we can copy paste. And right here at the end, I really want to talk about the experts because, you know, I'm an urban planner, you know, I know all the urban planners everywhere and I work with the cities and everything. I've realized that we don't know anything. Our job now is to shut up because the experts are the citizens. I've seen them all over the world. I meet them with my TV series, with my projects. Just like these people in Toronto, they have like their back alley like they have in North America. And they just have been living there for 20 years and going, why don't we ever use this space? It's literally outside of our house at the back. And everybody said, I don't know, we just can't use it. And then they said, let's use it. So they transformed it. They planted plants. They painted all the garage doors. They had community parties. And they were not allowed to. And the city came along and said, hey, you can't do that. Oh my God, that's a good idea. Okay, and then the city made it policy. It enabled other people to be able to do the same thing because the city went, damn, that is actually a really good idea. It's literally your street. You live there, right? So use it how you want. I have friends in Mexico City who fix all of this broken bits of asphalt, huge intersections with nothing in the middle of it. They plant trees, they make it safer for pedestrians, they talk to the citizens, they get them at the table saying, what do you want here? Oh, we need trees, it's really hot. Cool, we'll get trees, blah, blah, blah. And they just do what the citizens want, and they show what is possible. Same thing, Mexico City, they went, you can't do that, you're not allowed to do that, you don't have a permit, but damn, that's a good idea. And now it is policy in Mexico City. And then I go into places like this, the poorest places I've ever been in the world, in Cape Town. These people also live in these informal settlements where they have nothing. They're unrecognized. They're cut off from the grid. The city doesn't want to know about them. And with this guy on the left side, he works with these people. And we go in there and we say, hey, what do you need to make your life easier? And these people are like, oh my God, nobody has ever asked us this question. I see this a lot around the world. In these poor neighborhoods, like, why are you asking me? You know, and I'm going, because you live here, it's literally your neighborhood. And they go, oh my God, okay, sit down, get a pen and paper, because here come the ideas. And their ideas are brilliant. You do not learn this stuff in urban planning school. You have nothing on the agenda. Their ideas are simple, analog, brilliant, beautiful. And they also think about their community first, right? In this area, they said, we don't have a town square. And I think cities have town squares, don't they? Okay, yeah, normally we do. Cool. I said, you have no space. Oh, we're gonna knock down his house, but we're all gonna build him a new house down here, and he's okay with that. And so we're gonna have a little town square to have our meetings. They know everything they need to know about urban planning, and they're not educated as urban planners. They know the reality of their street. They know their needs. The woman holding the baby, brilliant lady, super strong, human. They have like some toilets, like some concrete toilets, not enough for their community. And the city just plants them there. And they said, we need them spread out around the neighborhood so that I don't get raped or sexually assaulted at night while I'm going to the bathroom. Wow, you don't get that in urban planning school, right? These simple, hard realities. So it's brilliant. And this is my point. The citizens know exactly what to do. It's time for us to shut up and listen, to engage them, because they want to be heard. For the past 70 years, with our car-centric thinking of cities, it's all thinking up here. It's big monster infrastructure. Nobody has been talking to us down on the street. And now it's time for us to be heard, the citizens of our cities. And this is what is happening around the world. And the ideas are better than any ideas we've had for the past 70 years. The experts are in every street, in every city in the world. So there you go, at the end of it here. Please, techno-rational and not techno-optimist, right? Let's go back to that rational thought that made us who we are today, that built the cities for 7,000 years. Keep it simple. That's what we need when things go bad, is simple analog solutions, right? You have proven that to the world. That's what we need to do in the rest of the world. Back to the future. And all power to the citizens. Let's listen to them. They are the experts. One group of people in Cape Town can plan a neighborhood better than 500 people like me. I really believe that. I've seen it. So I have two quotes there. Fancy quotes, right? Albert Einstein, Jean-Paul Sartre, right? But I'm going to close with a quote from the late, great Mr. Elvis Presley. A little less conversation, a little more action, please. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Incredible. Thank you, Michael, for really lighting the fire of our forum. Можливо, колеги,
You have to keep the fire burning.
Можливо, колеги, питання до Майкла. Я чесно скажу, він має не так багато часу для питань. До речі, Майкл розуміє вже українську мову частково, бо вже рік вивчає українську мову. Але він дійсно має скоро їхати в Берлін, але ми готові для відповісти на кілька питань. Будь ласка, задавайте їх. Ви проголосували, пане Веремчук, я бачив.
Українською мовою, оскільки ви розумієте вже. Слухати мешканців, спілкуватися з мешканцями. Дуже часто протилежні думки, протилежні побажання, і тоді все, що робити, коли це...
I think it's how you frame the question. You know, it's psychology. Like, a lot of my work is not like how to plan a street. It's psychology. It's sociology. It's marketing, maybe also. But it's you know, I've done some workshops around the world where we have people who will never give up their car, and you have the people who want to have a car. You know what I mean? Like a mix of people. And we say, hey, first of all, make a drawing. Make a drawing of a beautiful street. Like a street that you would love to live on, that you don't live on now. So you have all these adults making drawings. And none of them have car parking. Like these people, like, you know, they envision a beautiful street with lots of trees and, you know, benches. Everybody kind of does the same thing. Very few people draw the infrastructure. So it's how you approach it, right? You're talking about what kind of city. No, it's not like exactly what you want. It's about what kind of city we should have together. A lot of it is the framing of the question and how you activate them to think differently. That's really important. Conversations, they always end badly. But I mean, when you have, for example, a workshop or you present an idea, it's really important to talk about the children, the elderly, not just the one person who needs to have one parking spot. It's about, like, it's like what kind of city we have. And also telling the story of, ooh, this is what this neighborhood looked like in Lviv 100 years ago. Wow, look at the trees. Wow, look at, all the people on the streets. Telling the story of, like, it used to be different, and it can be that again, we can change it. So a lot of framing is my answer.
Thanks.
Для того, щоб більше людей пересідало на велотранспорт, я бачу, що необхідно створювати інфраструктуру для його зберігання в прибудинковій території, тому що радянські будинки не були для цього створені. Які ви можете надати пропозиції, чи у вас є досвід?
Just keep doing that. What we see now, certainly in a lot of parts of Europe, is we're designing housing developments. Even in America, I was working on a project in North Carolina, and the guy said, I don't want any car parking. And I'm going, you live in America, man? He's going, yep, I'm going to be the guy, the developer, who makes the first neighborhood without the need. We also see, actually, Soviet cities. I know I was in Slavutic a few months ago. And they designed car parking, but you had to walk to the edge of the city, and then there were garages, right? That idea we see in Freiburg in Germany. It's still the world's most sustainable neighborhood. It's really sad because somebody should have beaten that and made it even better. But their neighborhood is tram, bikes, walking. And if you have a car, you can park it outside the neighborhood, right? And it also costs you 20,000 euros for that car parking spot. So that maybe makes you think again about whether or not you want to have a car. So the Soviets actually I think the Soviets were good in their community planning, right? The way they designed their neighborhoods, not their transportation and their roads, but where people lived. So that, in a way, that's kind of back to the future, right? We see a new neighborhood development doing what they did, back in the 1950s. You have a garage outside Slavutic or another, back then Soviet city. You didn't have a car, but if you did, then you could have parked it there. So yeah, we can make some facilities. And also in Copenhagen, in some of the new developments, same thing. Really expensive car parking because we have a metro and we have bike lanes, and it's kind of how you design it. You don't just. What we see also is that in many countries around the world, they are taking away their minimum parking requirements. So many places say, oh, you're going to build a building? Yeah, you need 40% car parking, or you have to have this amount of car parking. So many cities around the world are getting rid of this rule. So now you have buildings that there is no car parking. Maybe one handicap parking spot or whatever, right? So this is where we're going. This is what we're seeing in America, in Asia, in Europe. Developers, the good ones, like car parking is an extra expense, right? They would rather build apartments to make more money, right? That's what developers want to do. So you're literally telling them, you don't need to have parking anymore, man. You can actually make more money. So that's kind of what I see happening around the world.
Thank you.
Ukraine, they're selling park lots as well in the parking garage. Але цікаво, наскільки багато ідей у нас є просто перед носом, але наскільки цінним є такий погляд, який дозволяє їх побачити.
Андріан Гутник, я депутат Львівської міської ради. У мене є таке запитання. Я багато разів був в Копенгагені, і, на мою думку, це одне з найкрасивіших міст взагалі в світі. Ви там багато працюєте, багато змінили Копенгаген. У нас є молодий креативний архітектор, в нас є бажання завершити того року війну. І як ви думаєте, щоб Львів, можливо, став чимось подібним? Я не хочу, щоб Львів взагалі на щось був подібний, але щоб він був настільки цікавий, який за останні роки став Копенгаген. Скільки нам потрібно буде років, на вашу думку?
Okay. I was many times. I'm a deputy in the city council, Andrian Hutnik, and I've been to Copenhagen many times. It's the most beautiful city probably that I have seen. But the question is, okay, you see Lviv. We have a lot of capacity. We have young people working here, but we have also all the will to change the city and so on. How many years do we need to make Lviv like Copenhagen?
I think Lviv should be Lviv, first of all, right? Like, I would say 5 or 10 years. That's my normal answer, 5 to 10 years, right? Yeah, think about it. Only 23% of the citizens of Lviv own a car. Only 23. In Copenhagen, it's 28, but still, that's very low, right? So it's what choices you make about how people get around. If you make the car the most convenient way to go from A to B in a city, humans will do that. They will always do the easiest option. If you make it difficult to drive, they will look for other solutions. If you build better bicycle infrastructure, this city could have 25% of the population on bikes, like that, if you did it well, if you designed well, which you're kind of not doing at the moment. But trams, buses, all of these other things, right? 23% of the population of this city look at the space that they have been given. Look at, I call it the arrogance of space, an arrogant amount of space for only 23%. And so many of it are just one car with one person, right? That is not democracy. That is a transportation dictatorship. And I think we're done with dictatorships now. Same in Kiev, low car ownership. Paris, it's falling. It's like only 29%. So, I mean, the question is democracy, man. All of this, the streets are ours. The most democratic spaces in the history of humans, and yet we do not have full access to it. All of us who live in a city. One user group is given all the space. So I think that makes it easy because the street is there. You can do anything you want with the street. You've already done it in Lviv, in Copenhagen. Streets have changed for like hundreds of years. We could do it next week. Maybe it takes a little bit longer than 1 week, but it's possible. It's political will. It's listening to the people, and not just the one user group who complain about traffic jams and parking. All of the people. This is something I've learned in Mykolaiv. We went around the city asking people, hi, we doing surveys, and they're also like going, why are you asking? Like, nobody's ever asked me this question. Same thing. How many percentage is that? 23, 7, 30, nice, 67? Yes, what is the other percent, the 67% of Lviv? What do they want? Where's the massive website where they can write in their ideas, right? It's urban democracy. So I think it is possible within 5 to 10 years. I think the layout of the city, also out in the suburbs, it's possible. So let's start doing that.
Я думаю, можливо, останнє питання. Пані, ви піднімали руку.
Дякую. Тоді нам, Україні, потрібно перше міняти законотворчу базу, бо в нас в будівельних нормах записано на кожен будинок кількість парковок, на кожну громадську забудову площа під парковки. Зараз, не так давно во Львові проходило громадські слухання по парковку під площею Міцкевича. Це руйнує громадський простір. І якщо ми пойдем таким путем, мы не хотим тут делать парковку, а наши нормы нас обов'язують, ми не пройдемо експертизу, не проєктуючи таку кількість парковок біля цього будинку.
Okay, yeah. Yes, the laws have to be changed. After independence, you inherited all the Soviet laws. Luckily, you have had reforms already. They are not enough, but now it is possible. The Soviets had incredibly wide car lanes, incredibly wide. And now it's possible in cities to have them much narrower, like we have in many European cities. If you do that, it's safer. There's a lot of science. Car drivers have to concentrate if they have more of a limited space. Safe drivers concentrating in cities, I'm a big fan of that concept. So yes, of course, reforms. You can do it nationally. You can also do a lot of things locally, and start the change in one city. Absolutely. Underground parking is expensive. We do it a lot in Denmark, but we have a lot of stupid politicians who build underground parking, but they don't take away the parking. If there's 200 spots here, they don't take away 200 spots on the surface. They just add another 200. It irritates me in so many Danish cities. So if you do invest in underground parking, then you take away the surface, right? And you put in trees and benches. If you improve the surface around the underground parking, then I think I'm okay with underground parking. We have to force them to go down and do that and give, re-democratize the space up on top, right? Making the city better. So yeah, like I said, if you make more space for cars, you get more cars, right? So that's the important thing, is to remove also at the same time. So it's just really expensive, underground parking. In Copenhagen, we know that one car parking spot in an underground facility takes 900 years to pay off. Like, it's 900 years. It's like it's not very cost efficient. And it's only cost efficient if you improve urban life on the top, and then you're willing to sacrifice that money to improve the air quality, the quality of life on the surface, right? Cool.
Incredibly inspiring. Thank you very much, and have a nice trip to Berlin.